Hey everyone, good morning. Still by myself today. I said I might have some other people with me. We are going to have some conversations, and with even some more people from my church, so we can have this discussion. We might have those as devotionals in the mornings, or we might just do a special segment that we'll post online on Facebook, and YouTube, so you can watch, having a broader conversation about faith and race. But today, I wanted to go through this again as we're all witnessing what's happening in America, and I wanted to speak about it again. The other thing here is very interesting in John chapter 4, and I want to just go to the scriptures very quickly here. John chapter 4, the Pastor Smith mentions the woman at the well, and Jesus goes and he goes to this foreign marginalized woman, and I've always loved that story because of its racial lessons. Jesus goes to this woman at the well, and he asks her for a drink. Now, again, this is a Jewish man would not speak to a woman during the day, especially a rabbi during the or a woman, period, who's not his wife, right, in public, and especially not a Samaritan woman, and one who was as with the history or the life that this woman had. Yet Jesus goes and he speaks to her. That's why she's so shocked, and she says, "How can you, a Jewish man, speak to me and ask me for water?" Now she says, "I see you don't have a cup, you don't have a bucket, you don't have anything to get the water with, right? How are you going to get the water?" In other words, Jesus knew he didn't have any way to drink water. He was asking this woman for a drink, which meant he was willing to drink out of her cup. He was willing to put his mouth on the cup that this woman would put her mouth on, that she would drink out of. That's the same idea of the segregated South and seeing a white man ask a black woman if he can drink out of her water bottle, right? That's how scandalous this would be. And that's what Jesus did. And there's another thing that I had not seen that Pastor Smith brought out, and that was that Jesus, um, his response, because Pastor Smith's talking about how should the church respond? How should the white church respond and approach the black church and the white community, the black community, and he mentions this parable as a lesson. He says Jesus goes to this woman and he takes the approach of asking, of needing something from her, as opposed to wanting to give her something. Now, did Jesus want to give her something? Absolutely. He wanted to give her something that only he could give. He was more interested in what he could give her than what she could give him. But he started by asking her for something. And I thought, wait a minute, because he's saying, we should go and we should approach the black community and say, we want to receive from you. And because he says most of the community, most of government has always approached the black church and the black community is, hey, what do you need? What can we give you? And I thought, well, biblically, Acts 20:35 says it is more blessed to give than to receive. So why wouldn't we go and say, what can we give? How can we help you? But then I thought about it. Well, if it's more blessed to give than to receive, then by going in and saying, hey, I need something from you. Can you help me? You're humbling yourself, and two, you're giving the other person, in this case, the black church or the black community, you're giving them the opportunity to be more blessed, to be the ones that are giving, and you're on the receiving end. Because the ones that are giving, right, are the ones, yeah, you're in a position of more influence or more, the ones that are doing the giving. And in this case, you turn it around saying, I need from you. Please teach me, like we said yesterday. I need to understand how can help me understand, because I have to admit I don't understand what's going on, and I want to know you. I want to know your culture. I want to know your beliefs. There's richness in the African American culture, and we want to be able to embrace that and learn from it, and without losing our own, and but yet incorporate and embrace and celebrate the differences. So, yeah, I read an article by Reverend Ephraim Smith, a black pastor, and he mentioned this in part of the article. Um, I would say that on the one hand, those that have been involved in ministry that includes initiatives of justice and reconciliation have the response have been consistent in their response: a call for justice, a call for love, a call for reconciliation, a call for changes through public policy. But there's also a segment of the body of Christ that unfortunately has consistently remained silent. So, and then he goes on and he mentions that he's also encouraged with some of the things that he sees. But I wanted to mention that because, again, we know that there are some good things that we've seen. Even I've enjoyed seeing some of the coverage of police sheriffs and police captains that have gone in with the community and in the protesters and stood with them in solidarity, saying, we stand with you. We're with you on this. So again, we understand that the most of the police workers, if not all of them, are good, hardworking moms and dads, and they're doing their best. But I understand this. As a pastor, I have police officers in my church that at a time like this, they want to know that hey, we're with you. Your church supports you. We have a lot of African Americans in our church that in a time like this are also wanting to say, hey, we pastor members, my white brothers and sisters in my church, I need to know, we need to know that you're with us. So, when I read these words where he says, hey, there's been many have been consistent, but many have remained silent. So I just want to make sure that my African American brothers and sisters, my Black brothers and sisters in my church here at Syracuse Alliance Church, know and understand that I stand with you, that I want to be a voice. I want you to hear my voice clearly. Um, and and my main voice, my main, see, I want to, I'm more doing than speaking. But so I want to do things like I've heard on Sunday. I want to do things right here in my community to combat poverty, to combat racism, to combat the graduation rate, to combat violence, to combat all of these things that are occurring right here in our community. But I also understand there's a moment to speak, and these events are creating an opportunity to be able to speak, to be able to speak about what's going on. And it's not just this pastor that's saying this, because we've heard it from Reggie. I've heard it from a lot of my friends that are saying they need everyone to stand together and to speak about what is going on. And let me put it this way: um, Martin Luther King was assassinated in 1968, just 4 years before I was born. Now, I was born in Miami, Florida, in a biracial family, in a very diverse community. Um, so then from there, I went to Atlanta, Georgia, and planted a Spanish church. And for 22 years, I was in a very diverse city and working and planning and leading a Spanish congregation with people, again, from all over Central and South America. So for me, those of you like me that have grown up in places like Atlanta, Miami, Chicago, New York, that have always been around diversity, you, you don't really realize, right? I didn't realize how 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 uh, problematic it still is, and and thinking back, wait a minute, Martin Luther King was only assassinated 4 years before I was born. So do I think that racism in America ended in those 4 years? Was it resolved? No, it had to have still been real in the 70s and in the 80s. And it has gotten a lot better. But I'm just saying that if you're like me, where you haven't been involved or in contact with it up front, you can tend to not realize or minimize it, thinking it's not as big a problem as it really is. So what we need to understand right now is, for our Black brothers and sisters, we need to listen and understand that this is a real issue. It is a real issue. And here is now an opportunity, because of the tragedy of George Floyd's death, but it's an opportunity to make some real progress and bring healing during this time. Um, so, I looked back at some of the white supporters of the civil rights movement, those who were killed during the civil rights. So, because the vast majority of people that died were Black people, but there were some white people that went and stood with them and gave their lives. There was a mailman who did a one-man march to deliver a letter to the governor of Mississippi and was killed on the way. There was a housewife who drove all the way down to Selma and started to help drive protesters back and forth, and she was killed. while she was doing that. And those are just two examples. But what I want you to think of is, listen, I can put these videos on, right, and post them, and I'm not afraid, or that bricks are going to come flying through my window, or I'm going to get shot on my way home for speaking out, right? I can go and stand with the protesters downtown and march with them, not with the crazy people that are looting and stuff, because that's another story. We're not talking about them. We're talking about the genuine people that are out there protesting and using their voice to affect change. I can go and stand with them and march with them, and then, and I'm not worried that I'm going to get shot in the head. So those who did that in the 60s, I mean, they took an incredible risk to go and stand with people, to speak out for injustice at that moment. And so there's no reason for us not to do that as well. And so we need to be doing that, and not afraid to speak. Yeah, thank you for listening. And hopefully we'll be able to continue to share this, and just see God move and bring healing, and bring His kingdom, and the church has got to rise up and be a part of that. So again, love everyone, support all of my law enforcement friends and family, and know how hard it is for you, but also know that that's not a reason to not speak up and say, hey, what's going on? What happened to George Floyd is wrong, and this is an opportunity to really make some changes. So let's be a part of that change as well. All right. God bless you.